So today, the 26th of October, we have been taking out Paterson's curse. That's mostly our job for today. Mark's just taken a break. See the big pile up there. Mark's taken a break and gone to photograph some birds at the local reserve. And I'll keep going for a while. It's not a job that I dislike, actually. I find it reasonably therapeutic just to be, I think I've said that before, just picking out the Paterson's curse. And what we're doing, of course, is trying to get it before it goes to seed. So we pay most attention to things that are flowering. It's hard to tell. The flower is very beautiful. The plant itself looks a little bit like borage. It sort of grows. Actually, the structure of the plant is quite varied. Normally it grows from a kind of rosette like that one, with a flower stem coming from the center, but it can actually grow like it has here, really, with no sort of basal, with that sort of foliage base structure. So, and you can actually find flowers on very, very small plants. It looks like really the flower is just comprising the whole structure of the plant. So you know, it's not the easiest thing to be on top of. And it's hard to tell whether we're making any headway with it or not. I think we are. I mean, if I look at this section, I do seem to recall that there was quite a bit in here last year leading into the shed, and I have certainly taken some out from here today. There is less in this section than there was last year, and there is a lot of really lovely grass. There's some that is about to flower, which needs to come out. The dog's down there in his pen. Anyway, I'm still firmly entrenched in the position that I would prefer to tolerate the Paterson's curse, much prefer it actually, than using a synthetic chemical to eradicate it or control it. I just have no appetite for using chemicals here at all. And as I've said many times before, I think a distinct advantage of having a small block like this is that it is possible to take it out by hand, or control it by hand, not take it out. I don't know that we'll ever get rid of it. And nor do I want to get rid of it, actually. I was thinking today as I was taking it out why we're doing it, and it is a declared noxious weed in Victoria where we are. As to why that's the case, I suspect that a part of it is because the agricultural sector don't like it growing and disrupting sort of farming practices and the product of farming practices, monocultures, etc. But I do appreciate that it also has some features that are not desirable. And I understand those to be the fact that it is in large quantities, it is toxic to animals that consume it, including bees that feed on the pollen. Bees love it, by the way. But that is in large quantities. Also because of the structure of the plant, and as I was mentioning, the fact that it often grows from a very flat rosette, it does tend to stop other things from growing because it covers a wider surface area, and immediately under the leaf nothing can grow because light and moisture cannot get to it. So in that way it tends to dominate, and it's also very effective at propagating itself through seeds. I think I read the seeds can remain dormant in the soil for 10 years, and it's prolific in the number of seeds that it produces. So they are definitely some disadvantages, and obviously, given its capacity to propagate itself, then it's difficult to contain it. But undoubtedly it has some good features as well. And I mentioned the fact that the flower is very beautiful to see in the field. I mean, if this were covered in that lovely mauve sort of purple flower, it's really lovely. Clearly it's very well suited to the habitat or the environment that we have here. It grows very well. It subsists and grows when other things do not, and when it is drier, and therefore provides some feed for animals when there's not much else around. The bees love it. Now, whether or not it is toxic to them or taints the honey or whatever, the fact is the bees do go to it. So my thinking is that if it is part of a diverse pasture and that there is some semblance of balance in the way it exists within the pasture, that's probably not a terrible thing. If it becomes totally invasive and it prevents everything else from growing, obviously that's a problem. But clearly that's not the case here. So, yeah, I feel somewhat confident in the fact that we can just continue to manage it as we are. And I can definitely see that if I were living here and I had a difficult morning through work or any other aspects of life that you find difficult, I think a real answer to that would be to come out and spend an hour picking Paterson's curse from the pasture. I think that would be very therapeutic. And I think by doing that, you could kind of keep it in check. So that's what I will do today. Keep taking it out. And so this is how it comes out when you're able to get the entire plant. So flower head, the stem, the base of the plant, and then kind of has a tuber. Mostly they come out quite easily, but sometimes they're just very, very fixed, and really all you can do is take out the flowering stem, and once removed you can see this is the effect that it has on the grass. So you can see it has prevented grass from growing, not that much really. And so you've got this beautiful grass here. Well, you can see here, one's come out of here, and then one I haven't been able to get out. I could probably come and twist that out. But you can see the browned off area where the base leaves have spread out and stopped other plants from growing. So we shall keep going. So I do actually wonder if a somewhat effective measure of controlling the growth of Paterson's curse is to, particularly where it has formed this rosette, and then the flowering stem really coming from the center of it, and noting that one of the concerns is that it does spread out like this and therefore block growth of other things. If you were to, the best option is probably to just remove it in its entirety so the roots come up, etc. Failing that, I wonder if removal of the flower head, now I know removing any part of the plant has the tendency just to encourage more growth, but in terms of leaving it in the pasture so that you're not entirely killing the plant, I do wonder if you can remove the foliage such that you then, so that's all gone now, you then allow the stuff around it, which you can see it's all browned off here, you allow that to grow. But you've taken off the flower head, so it's not going to go to seed. The plant is still there. It's going to come back. But, that's probably better than nothing, because you're decreasing its capacity to compete for space, for nutrients, and you're allowing, presumably, this sort of deadened grass to come back. Certainly what I don't want to do is, if I can at all help it, is leave exposed soil. That can't be good. Now that's not always an option because, as I said, it grows very differently in different places. So if you see this one, now this is quite a tall plant which has a very developed flower head on it, but actually it has no base. So I think the option for this one is definitely to take it out, roots and all, and it comes out quite easily. But those ones that have the base, they don't always come out that easy. See now, that has just left exposed soil, exposed dry soil, which I don't really want to do. Right, so we have a lot of Paterson's curse in flower now, and we've not really been able to stay on top of it, and it's way more than I expected, and so this really challenges my thinking that we can't be spraying, even though that's still my position. This has got me stumped a bit. It seems just a bit invasive, and I'm not so much worried for us. I am worried for our neighbours, though, who one of whom I know is very anti Paterson's curse, so I have to be really conscious of that and responsible. Plenty of bees on it. Anyway, yeah. So here we are, late November the 23rd. I think you may be able to hear the bees, of which there are a great many. Sort of really getting stuck in here. So many bees, I mean, they're just everywhere. We have continued over the last month or so to pull it out by hand, and you can kind of see, my phone will focus, where we have managed to do that. So we've tried to keep it away from the boundary fence and down to the bottom gate there with our neighbour who's understandably a bit concerned about it getting out of control. And that seems to have been fairly effective, but it is particularly when we're just out here weekly, it is a very arduous, time-consuming job, which leaves not a lot of time for anything else. And we just, in that time that we had, we just could not get on top of it. There is significantly more over the other side where we will graze our stock. We have not sprayed anything, but we did last week, and I also a bit today have resorted to effectively taking off the flower heads either by hand or with the brush cutter. It doesn't seem to have seeded yet, although some of it actually has, but where it is not obviously seeded, we have resorted to doing that with a view to sort of retarding its seeding. But look, I totally concede that we lost the battle with it this year. It smells amazing. I mean, it smells really lovely. And the sheep clearly do eat it, and horses, I know it's very toxic to horses, quite toxic to cattle, and pigs, not so much to sheep and goats, for which it is actually quite good fodder. And look, there's just no question that the bees just absolutely, I mean, they love it. And they're just everywhere. So look, yeah, I'm in two minds still about it, as to whether or not it's a problem or not. I mean, if you said to a farmer in New South Wales at the moment, hey, would you like to grow this plant in your fields so that your animals can forage on this when there is nothing else, I assume they would say yes. I don't know, of course, but I would think that would have to be the case, because it surely must be better than nothing. So I think we'll watch what happens to it over the summer. It will die back like everything else, of course. It will go through its cycle and die back. And when it does so, yes, it puts a numerous number of seeds into the ground. I know that. I think I read something like a plant can actually produce 30,000 viable seeds, which can lay dormant in the ground for up to 7 years. So it's an incredible survivor of a plant. But at the same time as it's doing that, presumably it is putting nitrogen and other elements back into the soil, building up the soil, as is most of the grass here that we cut. And I figure this just has to be the case, actually. I was thinking about this as I did it. So I just cut a path through because I'm bringing some mulch down. It must be the case that when you brush cut and you don't take it back to the soil, you definitely don't leave the soil exposed. That was our mistake the first year. I think we took it far too low and the plant actually died. But I think when you're just taking the tops off, that matter is sitting on the soil, in the soil, decays, and you still have viable plant there, but you're also feeding the soil, and indeed that decayed plant matter becomes your soil. That must be the case. I mean, I can't reasonably, sensibly think that it could be doing anything else. It's like, grass clippings. If you could leave them on your grass to go back into the soil, that has to be a good thing. Here there's just so many bees. And so focused on the flowers. I mean, I haven't even nearly been bitten. They're just totally focused. And there can be no denying. It's very beautiful to see it in the field. But I don't want to be criticised for being irresponsible about this, and perhaps I am being, but I know it's something that we have to keep on top of, and we are trying to do just that. Well, sheep definitely do like Paterson's curse, and I've just been here watching them, and the preference actually seems to be for the flowers. No lambs yet. The udder on the other girl is much bigger than it has been previously, but Honestly, I just have no idea. No idea at all when lambs are expected or what they're going to look like. Honestly, the shape has changed quite a lot. I don't know if this Paterson's curse is going to beat us. I'm loath to spray anything, but it's just everywhere.